G'day guys, Justin here, coming at you with my another video, I should say, with my 2019 NBA All-Star Game selections. I have selected these per conference rather than this whole captain idea. I will have captains, obviously, of each conference, but I'm not going to be having this whole idea of getting them split up into All-Stars left and right here. Particularly since that was just more to cater to everyone's willy-nilly non-compliant sort of thing. So without further ado, here is how I'd see the All-Star Game for 2019. Obviously, my captains would be the guys leading my MVP race at the moment. For me, in the West, it has to be Paul George, the MVP of the league. And in the East, coming second actually in my MVP race, Giannis Antetokounmpo. These guys, to me, have been the two perennial players of the league this year and certainly leading their conferences. So a no-brainer as to why they would be my captains. Next up, we'll look at the All-Stars for each conference. Now, this was done after the All-Star rosters were selected, so any player that is available pretty much doesn't have an issue with taking the floor from what I can understand. So obviously the leader outside of Paul George would be James Harden. So these are the All-Stars that are available outside of Paul George and Giannis Antetokounmpo. So in the West, I'd have James Harden, Damian Lillard, Russell Westbrook, Derrick Rose, De'Aaron Fox, Nikola Jokic, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, LaMarcus Aldridge, Steph Curry, and Anthony Davis. Now, although a couple of these guys are playing on teams that are outside of the playoff contention, and I mean I think there's one or two players with sub 500 teams. They have been playing to an all-star level themselves, which is what has allowed them to be selected. My starters are selected a little later on, and we'll get to those momentarily. In the East, I have decided to go with Kawhi Leonard, Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, which I'll get to in a second, Jimmy Butler, Kyrie Irving, D'Angelo Russell, Kemba Walker, Blake Griffin, Nikola Vucevic, Ben Simmons, and Chris Middleton. A lot of people are going to ask why Tobias Harris is on this team and not the West. Well, as you'd know, the trade deadline was pretty much done roughly the same time the All-Star selections were done as well. And to me, Harris has certainly been a top 10 MVP candidate this year. Things will probably change now that he has gone to the Sixers, but he was the reason the Clippers were in contention pretty much up until All-Star selection. So for me, he would have to get in. Having been traded over to the East, I think that even solidifies his case even more as to why he should be selected. But those guys for me would be my All-Stars from the Eastern Conference. Now, finally, as we get up to the starters of the Western Conference with Paul George as the captain, at the point guard, I would have Steph Curry of the Golden State Warriors. I think that's a no-brainer. Essentially 35 and 5, 30 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists this year on 50-40-90 shooting. It's a no-brainer. Kevin Durant would be at the small forward position, but I'll get to that in a second. Shooting guard, James Harden, leading the league in scoring, another MVP candidate, third for me in the MVP race, and we will see how that pans out there. Obviously, at the small forward position, I'd go with Paul George, let him play his natural position there. Power forward, Durant's got a bit more length. I can move him up, and certainly has a better post game than the other first three mentioned. And again, another MVP candidate there. And finally, I'd have Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets as my starting centre, probably the best, most consistent centre in the league this year in the Western Conference. Finally, I would be rocking my Eastern Conference starters, and some of this does change basically because of this trade with Harris. Now, Antetokounmpo, the captain, would be starting at the point for me. I think he's a logical choice to run the point. He does occasionally run the point, pretty much runs the point out in Milwaukee, so there's no reason why he can't run it there. Shooting guard, Jimmy Butler of the 76ers. He's out of my top 10 in the MVP race at the moment, but probably the best shooting guard going around at the moment. Also, Kyrie Irving, honourable mention there for the starting point guard position. But to me, shooting guard has to be Butler from the Philadelphia 76ers. Small forward has to be Kawhi Leonard of the Toronto Raptors. Let him play his natural position. Tobias Harris can jump into the small forward. He's got a little bit more height to contend with it there. Not to mention it's a perimeter-based game, so if he wants to stretch the floor, he can. And no doubt about it, Joel Embiid would be my starting centre for the Eastern Conference All-Stars, the best big in the league. And that's been me, guys. Thank you very much for watching the video. Hit that like button. Leave a comment. Let me know who your All-Stars were, whether you think we should stick with the current selection format or maybe we should revert back to the old school format. Certainly with some of the, let's say, star power that has gone over to the Eastern Conference this year, you could certainly look at taking it back that way. But at the same time, maybe we need to look at balancing the draft selections potentially of these two captains, so we're not just playing a pickup game, we're having a proper game. Bring some competitiveness back to it as well. And most of all, subscribe to the channel for future updates and hit me up on Twitter, Justin_G_Brian, so you can hit me up with all your thoughts there, basketball and otherwise. I recently done a Patrick Ewing thread, which I think a lot of people will be well informed about and should thoroughly enjoy. Thank you very much for watching the video, guys. That's been me, and I'll see you again soon.